We are back with another Dune Imperium video. However, today is another strategy video, and I'm going to preface this video by saying that it is not a recipe for victory, and things depend on game state, leaders and matches, cards acquired from Imperial and T-Laxo row, intrigue, starting position. Dune has a lot of variables, so things can change fairly quickly, and the value of board spaces can change depending on your particular circumstances and the game state. However, in this video, I am going to explain my opinion and view on all the board spaces, starting with early game, which is what I'm classifying as round 1 to 2. Mid game is round 3 to 5, and late game is round 6 to 10. I made this video in the mindset that those are the rounds, so when I'm speaking on values, that is where I'm thinking of, as we are seeing more round 6 finishes, so I'm considering that as the late game now, and obviously round 7 is the usual end game anyways. So with that being said, we are going to start with, so now we're going to talk about the value of the Landsraad spaces, so High Council, Mentat, Swordmaster, Dreadnought, and Tactile. We're going to go over early game, mid, and late, as we've been doing. So let's get right into it. Alright, so let's go over to the bullet points here. Persuasion boost converts a weak card like a dagger into 1 persuasion, enabling higher value Imperium row reveals, 5 to 6, 7 cost cards. Early tech positioning sets up tech purchasers or block opponents from grabbing powerful techs like memo chords or mimic film, early game, or even artillery. Leader discount synergy, so it works well with Elise Ekaz's ability. Send away like the dagger, you send the dagger to tech, now you have 1 spice off the dagger. Prince's Signet Ring, you get a -1 from the tech negotiator, you get a -1 from the Prince Ring, so now you can get memo chords for free, mimic film for free, wind traps if you wanted, or there is Memnon Signet Ring, which gives you 1 spice, so Memnon Signet Ring to tech can also get you memo chords, mimic film, wind traps, whatever 2 cost spice tech that is available there for you. Alright, so that's the bullet points there. So early game, you'll see people go to tech negotiator to gain like a tech token, gain 1 persuasion, perhaps turning their dagger into the 1 persuasion to gain on top of their persuasion in hand, allowing you to maybe grab higher cost Imperium row cards such as 5 persuasion, 6, or if you really have the hand for it, which is like convincing, recon, experimentation, and dagger, then you could send dagger to tech to get to 7 and then reveal on your second agent. It's a really niche scenario, but it's still a play if you don't see yourself getting any other value out of those remaining cards that you've got there for your second agent. But it is a little more difficult now with atomics, as the 6 or 7% cards can be blown away before you reveal. I don't know if many people will realize that you're going to reveal on second agent, but there's always that gamble. If someone does bomb the row, then you better have a second plan to play out that last agent, because now your 7 cost card is gone. Also, beyond the persuasion, early access to tech row is another huge perk. If you're not buying a tech immediately, maybe placing a token can block opponents from techs they do need early on, especially like those memo chords, mimic film, or even if someone wants to go combat for artillery. So like I said earlier, leaders like Elise Ekaz, Beast, or Prince may aggressively eye these techs due to their synergy or affordability, with them be starting with a spice, Elise Ekaz being able to send away the dagger for a spice, and Prince being able to get a discount off of Signet Ring, right? Even Memnon with the 1 spice on Signet Ring. So allows them to secure those in round 1 if they would like, right? So for example, if Memo Chords is there in the starting tech row, Beast is available leader, you might see people pick Beast. Depending on positioning, maybe Beast can go to full space, and as second agent move, if no one blocked tech, now Beast can go to tech and grab Memo Chords, and now he has interstellar shipping unlocked for round 2, first agent, right? All right, let's talk about this next spaces. I think it's very niche space here in early game, the Dreadnought space. I personally don't go Dreadnought 99% of the time when I play early game. Now, there are matches where I have gone to Dreadnought with leaders such as Leto or Prince, right, in the earliest rounds of round 2 or 3. Otherwise, I'm 100% focused on just rushing to Swordmaster, so this space early game has very, very little value to you, in my opinion, unless you are leaders like Leto, who you may be able to afford that Dreadnought early, or Prince, you have some Solari kicking around from Conflict 1 Spite, or Solari reward, so you can't afford Dreadnought because you don't see yourself getting Swordmaster anytime soon, so that Dreadnought's 4 strength for you, which may lead you to gain Solari from another conflict. Maybe Guildbank Raid is the next conflict, you don't know. Stuff like that. Otherwise, I think Dreadnought early games round 1 to 3, you're not going to see people go there most of the time. Like very, very, very rarely you're going to see someone go there early game. Okay, so we'll just go over the bulletin points here. So leader specific value, as I said, early Dreadnoughts are most valuable with Leto discounted costs. Instead of 3 Solari is 2 Solari. And Prince early game, getting Dreadnought, it's worth 4 strength for Prince if you're playing him instead of just the regular 3 strength, because that's his leader ability, which early game, that 4 strength, that's 2 troops from other players if they just want to match you off of a 1 Dreadnought, right? So it definitely gives you better combat presence, and it also kind of forces your opponents to overcommit, which is the next point here, combat efficiency. So in rounds 2 to 3, a Dreadnought can secure easy second and third place rewards, often forcing opponents to overcommit, because if you are Prince, 4 strength, that's 2 troops from your opponents. You hope they have daggers to get over your 4-1 Dreadnought. Usually you're tossing probably Dreadnought and a troop, so now you're at 6 strength, right? Off of only 2 units. And even that, I mean, still, your Dreadnought just off the 4 strength can still get you easily, as I said, 3rd or even 2nd place rewards. And then the Dreadnought goes back to your supply because you didn't win the combat, so you don't have to put it on a space. And then the other point here is a niche alternative to Swordmaster. This is like very niche, but it's like only worth considering early if Swordmaster is going to be blocked for you, and extra Solari is available from other sources like Yuna's ability or Solari conflict, so you can afford to maybe go Dreadnought and get into conflict and get Solari out of a conflict, which just refunds it basically. Otherwise though, you probably aren't going to see people going Dreadnought. I mean, they'll most likely, if they're not getting Swordmaster, they'll just pivot to High Council or may just hold on to Solari and try to get Swordmaster when the next available time is, which might be round 5 or 6 for them, but they're still going to hold that Solari and not pivot to something else to make use of that Solari in the moments. Alright, so let's talk about the space and your whole reason for trying to get Solari early game. Swordmaster. Bulletin points here, huge action boost. Getting Swordmaster round 2 gives you 6 extra actions if the game ends round 7, so 20 total actions versus only 14 without it, right? I mean, round 3 gives you 5 extra actions and so forth. Early tempo advantage, more agents means more flexibility to contest conflicts, gain resources, and make key influence plays before others can, since they only have 2 agents and you have 3. High impact, early only. The later you get Swordmaster, the less value it gives. Early rounds equals maximum payoff and stronger long-term momentum compared to if you get Swordmaster around 5 or 6. Game's going to be ending soon, round 7, 8-ish. I mean, mostly it ends around 7 in ranked, but I have been seeing games go a little longer sometimes where it's like round 8. But still, Swordmaster round 6 doesn't feel good. Swordmaster round 7 definitely doesn't feel good. And Swordmaster round 8 is unheard of, right? But yeah, earlier you get it, the more impact it is. Alright, so to go like more in depth with that, so Swordmaster, most desirable spot early game. I mean, look how good it looks, so desirable. I know I want the space 100% of the time. I hate playing with just two actions. You know, you'd rather 3 people do your work than 2 people, right? So you get more done with 3 workers than 2. Personally, hate playing without Swordmaster. I find it sometimes difficult to adapt with only 2 agents, as it makes every move have to be moving the needle a little further along to get to that victory, and you need good cards to help you back you up with only 2 agents. Ideally, cards with good reveals, as you aren't able to do 3 full actions, right? So you need cards that can give you sort of those actions on reveal, or even cards with good on-play effects to gain you resources and advantages and momentum otherwise, because you are only playing with 2 agents to try to push you to that finish line. Because I mean, if you try to run games with two agents, you kind of have to close the game out pretty quick, as those guys with 3 agents are going to be able to gain more momentum later on in the late game than you are going to have with only 2 agents, unless you got a lot of good cards. Maybe you're getting lucky with intrigues. That's like the only way where you can kind of compensate for only having 2 agents. So just aim to get Swordmaster if you can, because Swordmaster will make your life easier and give you a better chance at winning, in my opinion. So in short, Swordmaster is a game-winning tempo tool when acquired early. It gives you more options, more flexibility, and more scoring potential across the board. I mean, especially with Immortality now, experimentations, you want to be playing those, get those research icons to gain you those bonuses and benefits off that research track, and to get yourself those Tlaxu VPs, which, I mean, I feel like the first Tlaxu VP is kind of essential at this point. It's like the friendship on the board. So 2 agents, definitely gonna be hard for you to get that experimentation out, because you want to be doing other things. So Swordmaster, try to get it if you can. Otherwise, you're gonna have to be playing a more tighter game, higher efficiency play style, because every agent is gonna have to generate some serious value to keep pace against those players who do have their Swordmaster. Early value of the next space, Mentat. Mentat round 1 you will usually see be used by Ilban, Leto, or Archduke. Those are usually your 3 suspects. Ilban to gain the double draw, perhaps gain extra persuasion for a better Imperium card to see what others might reveal on in the Imperium row. Leto gets a discount of 1 Solari on the Mentat, so you might see Leto go there for the same reason as Ilban, to draw 1 card to gain extra persuasion, see what others reveal, perhaps even gamble to draw the ring if they did not have it in the starting hand, and a spice tile is still open to use to gain most likely the spacing bump. Archduke likes to use wealth to Mentat early so that he can get his leader ability going to get those trashes, so wealth, Mentat, then into a city, Landsraad space or desert tile with the other agent, with the last agent, so that he can trash a card at the end of the round. Other leaders early rounds 1 to 3 you don't usually see go well to Mensat. Now you may see some players do it. Is it the most ideal thing to be doing as other leaders? Probably not, but you might still see players do it. But mostly you'll just see those 3 suspects, Ilbon, Leto, and Archduke be the ones to go wealth into Mensat early, as otherwise you don't see people do it. They want to save for that Swordmaster money, right? They don't get as good of benefits as those 3 other leaders do for getting Mensat early. Okay, so I put High Council in mid-game value spaces, as I think early game Swordmaster should still be your top priority for your Solari early. However, when it comes to mid-game, you may have to pivot to High Council if you don't see yourself being able to get Swordmaster anytime soon. All right, so let's go over the points. Strategic, pivot, and Solari optimization. High Council becomes a strong mid-game play if Swordmaster is blocked or delayed. Spending Solari here lets you convert resources into valuable persuasion, especially when access to Swordmaster is uncertain for you. Deck building, timing, and diminishing returns. Its value is front-loaded. Getting High Council by round 3 to 4 maximizes its return via deck building here. Row control and awareness in Immortality. Aiming for High Council early to grab strong Imperium cards is riskier. Opponents can atomic away those key cards. Okay, to go more in detail with that, High Council is a powerful board space that is generally best acquired early, ideally by the 3rd or 4th round, to maximize its benefits. Getting it sooner rather than later allows you to capitalize on the increased persuasion and potential cards you may be able to get from the Imperium row. However, the optimal timing can shift based on the specific game state. There are times where you will get High Council first if you don't see yourself being able to get Swordmaster anytime soon. You'd rather spend the Solari that you got now as a means to do something with that resource, as you can always gain more Solari later on. As well as there are games where you may not get Swordmaster at all as you get blocked, didn't have the access. When you could have hit it, it feels too late to really benefit it from. Learning when to pivot to High Council is a really good judgment skill, as if you see yourself being blocked on Swordmaster till round 4, 5, 6, then it's probably best for you to just spend that Solari now, gain the benefit of having that High Council 2 bonus persuasion, help get Spice Bonus flows later in the game. And personally, I feel like later on in the game, High Council's value kind of diminishes slightly, as you are probably already done the deck building aspects of the match, other than maybe picking up 1 to 2 really good cards. You probably don't want to be clogging your deck up, as you won't be seeing the cards you acquire in early game as much. Now, when it was only Rise of Ix, I would say sometimes even going High Council or Swordmaster when there's a powerful Imperium card would have been worth considering, but now with Immortality and the Atomics, this play becomes more risky, as players can see you skip Swordmaster and go High Council, knowing you're trying to reach that persuasion to get that powerful card, such as Lady J, Home Directorship, For Humanity, Kwisatz, Full Scale Skull, and they will just nuke the row unless you're Helena and can Signet Ring the card away to the side to save it. Going by my in-game stats, I only take High Council 64% of the time, but Swordmaster 93% of the time. This may also be due to the fact that I hate playing with 2 agents, so I always prioritize going Swordmaster, even if that means holding onto my Solari for an additional round, where I know other players would have just gone High Council instead to gain a benefit immediately. That might be just my player style. I find it more often than not that I'm stress playing when I don't have Swordmaster, but also in those cases, if I don't have Swordmaster, I need High Council. As with 2 agents, you rely on having good agent box cards and reveals to be able to close out games with no Swordmaster. Now, I will say, those games where you are able to get Swordmaster early and find an opportunity to get High Council feels really good, because later in the game, that 2 persuasion off of High Council is very valuable to get those Spice Bonus flows, right? You might not have to draw as much now because you have that additional 2 persuasion just sitting there in your hand anyways from that High Council. Technically speaking, you have that 2 persuasion there in your hand, so you don't have to try to draw as much, so you have more opportunity to do other plays because you're not reliant on just having purely what's in your hand to get that 9. You have that 2 persuasion on the board there that helps you as well reach 9. Okay, on to Swordmaster mid-game value. Still strong but timing sensitive. Swordmaster retains good value in mid-games around 3 to 5, but its impact starts to diminish past round 5 since you've missed out on several potential bonus actions earlier in the match, in my opinion there. And situationally, late pickup, by mid to late game, Swordmaster is often only worth pursuing if a specific synergy is available, like say you have Recall Agent, and can immediately convert it into a tempo positive play. Otherwise, the investment can feel too slow or inefficient in mid game. I mean, ideally, you're hoping to get Swordmasters round 2, 3, at worst 4, but ideally 2 or 3 is what you're aiming for, right? Most of the time, I feel like I'm getting it round 3. Unless I have a really good start, then it could be round 2, and depending on leader, obviously, as well. And if like you can get smuggle type of vibe. But more so on that, I mean, Swordmaster still has value, but once you touch round 6, which I'm considering is late game in this series of videos here for values on spaces, The value of a Swordmaster drops a lot in my opinion. Now, that's not to say that the additional action in round 7 won't be good or helpful. It's just that the value of Swordmaster is diminished the later you get it, as you've missed out on all those extra actions had you been able to get it earlier, like rounds 2 and 3, 4, I guess. And once it becomes round 5, if I don't have Swordmaster, I kind of just give up on getting it at that point. Unless like the game state calls for it as such, like as I said, the recall agent intrigue. So going to Swordmaster, I can recall my agent and now I'm a +1 action. Or if I had like embedded agent type of thing, so I can turn going to Swordmaster into also going up on shipping now as well. So I'd rather spend my 2 agents. If I'm not getting Swordmaster, I'd rather spend the 2 agents trying to push my game plan further. And there are times where I still grab Swordmaster late, but it does feel extremely bad in most of those cases, as I will have already most likely pivoted to high counts already. So I'm usually shortchanged with Solari by then, and the Solari I've gained is either from being involved in a conflict per se that rewarded Solari, or that I've just collected over time from going to wealth, intrigues, or people dropping from the shipping track. Alright, so Mentat mid-game value, flexibility, and late round info advantage. Mentat gives a powerful 4th action if you have Swordmaster, letting you act last and react to opponents' reveals and conflicts with more information, crucial in mid-game for calculated plays. Key synergy for draw-based leaders, especially valuable for Ilban, the double draw from Mentat. Leto also contesting the Mentat space gets a discounted cost of it being only 1 Solari, making it in contested space when those leaders are present. So to go more in depth there, Mentat is still very strong in mid-game, as usual. Late game, still strong. It allows you to dig into your deck as well, as you will be going last in the round since you have 4 agents total. If you have Swordmaster, which is really strong, as you can evaluate the conflict, see what everyone else reveals for, such as dagger reveals, intrigues like reinforcement, double cross, if they wanted to use counterattack to deploy 2 more troops in, which gives you information on the situation at hand so you can determine what you're going to do with that last agent, if you're going to commit more to the fight, or maybe you're going to pull off and do something else, realizing that you're not going to get that fight. Also, leaders that love Mentat best is obviously Ilban. Mentat becomes a double draw for Ilban, which is huge for cycling your deck and revealing for big persuasion to get those Spice Must Flows or other good Imperium cards early in the game. Leto likes Mentat as well, as it only costs 1 Solari, so you will see competition between Ilban and Letos when they're in the match together. If those leaders are grabbing Mentat first, obviously Ilban benefits the most from grabbing, as it is 2 card draw at minimum. But overall, Mentat is still good for every leader, as I said earlier, it does allow you to evaluate the end of the round basically, as you are going to be playing last, so you get more information on what your opponents are doing. You also have to take in that there is only 4 draw spaces. 1 requires Solari, which is Mentat. 1 requires 2 water, which is Research. And 1 requires 2 Spice, which is Selective Breeding. And then there's Air King that's free to cost to draw, right? These spaces will always be a priority for players in mid-game to cycle through their deck and even thin out their deck with Selective Breeding, Trashing, aiming to get Spice Must Flows and other good Imperium cards to finish off building their deck and trying to optimize their plays. Alright, let's talk about tech and Dreadnought mid-game value. I just put these together here as, I mean, they're both related to each other. So tech dependent, the worth of using the tech negotiator space hinges on the availability of impactful techs. If no desirable techs are present for you or your opponents, the space boils down to just a +1 persuasion for you and a tech token, maybe for later if a better tech appears. And efficiency concerns. So like Dreadnought, it can feel inefficient mid-game if you can't afford to pair the action with a tech purchase. Spending an agent for just a Dreadnought 3 Solari or 2 if you're Leto without the tech benefit feels underwhelming unless it supports a major combat push, or say you have high priority travel. Then Dreadnought actually becomes a little more valuable, because high priority travel onto Dreadnought allows you to deploy that Dreadnought plus 2 troops from your garrison into conflict. So it kind of gives you like a pivot into combat there with those 2 combinations of high priority travel and going to Dreadnought. Otherwise, it does feel a little underwhelming just to go to Dreadnought, just to get a Dreadnought. And if you're not even getting a tech as well, and it's only purely just for that Dreadnought, it definitely feels inefficient and kind of slow and underwhelming. And also, in my opinion, the mid-game value of tech negotiator is kind of determined by what techs are available. You could just be going there to get that 1+ persuasion, which may allow you to get the Spice Must Flow, and then you just get your -1 tech token afterwards if there's no desirable techs for you, right? But otherwise, tech negotiator and Dreadnought are really reliant on what techs are going to be available, and more so like the game state and what your strategy is kind of going for. Especially if like there's no good techs, and you're probably not going to be hitting these, especially not Dreadnought. Dreadnought's probably going to be not touched at all for you. More so tech negotiator to get the discount and then grab a good tech. And then mid-game, even Dreadnought space is sort of the same as tech negotiator, except you get more value out of the space by having the spice to buy a tech while getting a dreadnought. Otherwise, you're just using an agent to go dreadnought, spend 3 Solari, get the dread, and that's it. So you're missing the other half of the space's value, which is the tech portion. Now, sometimes dread and no tech, but it does feel a little bit of an inefficient action at that point. Now, if you got Grand Conspiracy though, and you want to get 2 VPs off it for some crazy reason, I don't recommend focusing on the Grand Conspiracy, like the Grand Quest really, because it is kind of like the worst endgame intrigue, but it could be something if you're trying to complete that Grand Quest. Otherwise, Dreadnought is not usually hit as often, I would say. I say it's a very low priority space for a lot of players. All right, High Council and Swordmaster late game value. So High Council, clutch persuasion push. High Council can serve as a late game desperation play to gain the last 1-2 persuasion you need for Spice Must Flow. Swordmaster, opportunity cost rises as the game progresses, using 2 agents to push your win condition. Combat VPs, tech, shipping, etc. often outweighs chasing Swordmaster late, especially if you already pivoted to High Council or you missed those key Solari windows to get Swordmaster. So oftentimes, I mean, round what I'm considering, 6, 7, 8 rounds, you're most likely you've just given up on Swordmaster by now. You've already spent your Solari that you tried scrounging up in those early rounds for High Council to benefit you to get Spice Must Flows in the late game, because you're not really going to Swordmaster. It's very inefficient this late into the game. Now, High Council, you may see, as I said, people just go there as a last move just because they're missing that persuasion, and maybe they don't just need 1 persuasion, they need 2 persuasion, and they have that dagger still in their deck, so now they go High Council. Now that dagger is worth kind of like 2 persuasion in a way, and they can afford that Spice Must Flow they need to maybe close the game out or win their tiebreaker, whatever. But these 2 spaces, late game High Council, you definitely see hit more often than you see Swordmaster in the late rounds here. You see people go to High Council as the last move if they haven't picked it up and they've got the 5 Solari just laying around. You'll usually see someone go there if it's going to benefit them to get that Spice Must Flow. All right, so I just grouped these 3 together: Mentat, Tech Negotiator, and Dreadnought. So Tech Negotiator, still situationally useful, can enable last chance pickups like flagships, Holt's engine if you got 2 Spice Must Flows, or you are going to have that second one here at the end of the round, late game, or Shuttle Fleet for alliance flips. Sometimes just a way to squeeze out 1+ persuasion from a leftover dagger to get you that Spice Must Flow. Mentat, high late game priority, especially if research station, selective breeding are taken. You don't have that 2 water, you don't have that 2 spice to get those spaces, so now you're looking at Mentat to get you that additional draw. An extra action gives a vital flexibility at the end to react last, scout combat, and plan your final plays, often a key to winning close matches. Dreadnought, rarely worth it late game, mostly dead space unless a must-have tech appears and tech negotiator is blocked and you just have that raw spice to pick up that tech. You're not going to see Dreadnought be taken here as a priority. Maybe you got Grand Conspiracy, you needed 1 more Dreadnought, sure, go there. Maybe you have the 8 spice to get flagships and tech is taken, so you just go to Dreadnought instead to pick it up. Sure, that works. Otherwise, it's rarely worth it late game to be going Dreadnought unless you're getting that value out of it in regards to picking up a key tech that's going to help you push your victory. Okay, so that's my thoughts and opinions on the Landsraad spaces for early, mid, and late game. You guys let me know in the comments down below where your opinions may differ, other thoughts, other things to add to the values of these spaces so other players can read the comment section and give them some more tips and help to get better at the game. Appreciate y'all for watching. Hit that like, hit that subscribe, leave a comment, consider becoming a channel member, and until next time guys, peace.